The slate quarries of Snowdonia have a way of holding on to the silence, a silence deeper than any you'll find in a city. It's a silence that seeps into your bones, a constant, watchful presence. I'd always been drawn to them, even as a kid. The stark grey landscape, the abandoned machinery, the sheer drop of the cliffs. It was a place where the ordinary rules seemed to bend. This particular night, the air thick with dampness, a low mist clinging to the quarry walls. I'd driven up from Bangor, a fool's errand really, but I wasn't alone. I brought Sarah, my girlfriend. I was determined to impress her with my knowledge of the stars and the raw beauty of Snowdonia. The forecast promised a clear sky, perfect for some astrophotography. I packed my gear, a flask of strong tea, and a head full of romantic notions about capturing the Milky Way against the jagged peaks. And of course, the hope that Sarah would finally see me as the adventurous, rugged type I desperately wanted to be. I parked my car near the old Dinorwig quarry, a place that always gave me a shiver. The moon was a sliver, barely casting any light, and the wind whispered through the skeletal remains of the winding gear. I set up my tripod, fiddling with the settings, trying to ignore the feeling that I wasn't alone. Sarah, wrapped in her thick coat, shivered beside me. "It's atmospheric," she said, her voice a little strained. The silence was broken by the distant bleating of a sheep, a lonely sound that echoed off the quarry walls. I turned my head, scanning the darkness, but saw nothing. Then, a flicker of movement, just at the edge of my peripheral vision. I spun around, my heart pounding, but the darkness had swallowed whatever it was. "Did you see something?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide. "Just a fox, I think," I lied, trying to sound nonchalant. But the feeling of being watched intensified. I took a swig of tea, trying to calm my nerves, and pointed out the constellations to Sarah. They were magnificent, a dazzling display of light against the inky blackness. Then I heard it, a low, guttural growl coming from the shadows behind us. It wasn't the sound of any animal I recognized. It was deeper, more primal, a sound that seemed to vibrate in my chest. A cold, rotten smell filled the air. Sarah gasped, clutching my arm. What was that? I fumbled for my flashlight, my hands shaking, and turned it towards the source of the sound. 2 points of light, glowing a sickly yellow, stared back at me. They were eyes, but not like any eyes I'd ever seen. They were too large, too intense, too inhuman. A feeling of intense cold radiated from the eyes. A figure emerged from the darkness, silhouetted against the faint starlight. It was tall, impossibly tall, and its form was shifting, blurring at the edges. It moved with an unnatural grace, a fluid, almost liquid motion that made my stomach churn. I tried to scream, but my voice was trapped in my throat. I stumbled backwards, tripping over my tripod, and fell to the ground, pulling Sarah down with me. The creature was closer now, its eyes burning into me, its growl a low, menacing rumble. "Sarah, run!" I yelled, pushing her away from me. She scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide with terror, and started to run towards the car. But the creature moved with a speed that defied belief, closing the distance in a heartbeat. It reached Sarah in a single fluid motion, its long, clawed hand reaching out. A scream tore through the night, cut abruptly short. I watched, frozen in horror. As the creature, I can't even describe what it did. I saw Sarah fall to the ground, her body twisted and broken. The creature turned its glowing eyes towards me, its growl a triumphant, guttural sound. I scrambled to my feet, my heart hammering against my ribs, and ran. I ran as fast as I could, my feet pounding against the rough ground, the creature's growl echoing behind me. I didn't dare look back. I just ran, my lungs burning, my legs aching, until I reached my car. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip them. I finally managed to unlock the door and jumped inside, slamming it shut behind me. I turned the key in the ignition, my hands shaking so violently I could barely control the steering wheel. I turned the key again, and again the car would not start. I turned the key once more, and at last the engine roared to life. I slammed the car into reverse and peeled out of the parking spot, gravel spraying behind me. I didn't stop until I reached the main road, my headlights cutting through the darkness. Even then, I didn't feel safe. I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, expecting to see those glowing eyes in the darkness behind me. I drove all the way back to Bangor, my hands still shaking, my heart still pounding. The memory of those eyes, that growl, that shifting form, and Sarah's lifeless body was burned into my mind. I'd heard stories, whispers of things that lurked in the mountains, things that were older than the quarries themselves. I'd always dismissed them as folklore, as the ramblings of old men. But now I knew better. There are things in this world that defy explanation, things that lurk in the shadows, things that are best left undisturbed. And I'd found one in the slate quarries of Snowdonia, and it took Sarah from me. I did the only thing I could think of. I went to the police. I told them everything about Sarah, about the creature, about the quarry. They looked at me with skepticism, then with suspicion. They found Sarah's body, of course. And they found nothing else. No tracks, no evidence of any creature, just Sarah and me. They questioned me for hours, their voices hard, their eyes accusing. "Tell us again exactly what you saw," the detective would say, his eyes boring into mine. The way she fell, the sounds it made. They asked me how I could run, how I could leave her. They showed me photos, clinical, sterile. Sarah's eyes empty, not like the yellow eyes. Those eyes, they burn even now. They found my fingerprints on her coat, said the marks on her body could be made by a man. "You were jealous, weren't you?" they asked. "She was going to leave you." They arrested me. They charged me with Sarah's murder. Now I sit in this cell, the silence pressing in on me, just like it did in the quarry. The cold seeps into these stone walls, just like it did in the quarry. I hear the whispers of the other inmates, their voices like the wind through the winding gear. My parents, they don't believe me. My friends avoid my calls. They think I'm a monster, and maybe they're right. Maybe I am. Did I do it? No, I know what I saw in the quarry, and I know it's still out there. Am I mad? Maybe. Maybe I snapped, and my mind created a monster to hide what I did. But no. I felt the cold. I saw the eyes. I know what's out there. I can still feel the creature's breath, that rotten stench, the way it moved. Fluid, wrong.